Hello and welcome back. This is a video for the Cannabis Education Center at Holyoke Community College. This is part of the cannabis cultivation program, and I'm discussing cannabis plant diseases. So we're looking at plant pathology here, and this is part 2 of a two-part presentation. We just left off talking about botrytis, one of the fungal diseases that can affect our cannabis plants. And now we're going to look at a few more fungal diseases and an insect disease. White powdery mildew is a fungus, a fungal pathogen that can affect cannabis plants. This is not specific to cannabis. It can affect all types of flowering plants in our gardens, and it looks like a light colored powder on leaves. This is very common in squash plants. If you have a garden, a vegetable garden, you can see this late in the season on squash, zucchini, and pumpkin. That light colored powder. White powdery mildew, like a lot of fungal diseases, prefers cool, humid environments. So it can grow, it spreads through air and moisture. And you can prevent white powdery mildew with good airflow and spacing. So fungal diseases often come from spores, as we talked about in the last presentation, and spores are constantly around us. So it's very hard to prevent completely prevent this type of infection, but with good airflow between plants, you can limit the amount of humidity, and with spacing, you can do the same. This is what white powdery mildew looks like. The kind of whitish dust is our white powdery mildew, and this is a photo from moldresistantstrains.com. So if this is a disease that you are particularly concerned about, say you've experienced it before in your grow room, you might consider a disease-resistant strain. The next pathogen we're going to look at is Fusarium. Now, Fusarium is a common name. It's also the genus name for this soil fungus. And this is another one that's not specific to cannabis itself, but it can affect lots of different plants, lots of different types of plants. And Fusarium, the soil fungus, can cause roots to rot, it can cause leaves to rot, it can travel through the plant. And this will impact water and nutrient uptake. Being a soil fungus, the plants will naturally be taking up moisture, water from the ground, and it can interact with this fungus in that way. This is what Fusarium leaf wilt looks like once it's entered the plant and caused disease. This is a very obvious sign of Fusarium. At the tip of the branch, those leaves can start to die. Of course, whenever you see infected material, you want to remove it immediately. Now, there's very little that you can do to prevent Fusarium except having clean soil or growing media. And you can also look for disease-resistant strains of cannabis for this disease. Pithium is another soil fungus, and this one can be devastating. It causes damping off. So this can happen very early in a plant's life cycle. It can also often happen also happen later. So when damping off occurs, that happens when a seedling emerges from the soil or a growing medium, and then the stem starts to shrink, shrivel in on itself, and the little plant will topple over and die. This can happen if you're starting your seeds in soil or even in rock wool. It may even occur in starting with vermiculite if you have infected vermiculite. So this is another one where you want to make sure that your growing medium is very clean and sterile, and you're not overwatering your seedlings. Just like the other fungi that we've looked at, Pithium thrives in cool, damp conditions, so minimizing the coolness and the dampness can limit the effects of Pithium. This is what it looks like. This is a photo from Cannabislandia, but I had this happen with cannabis seedlings in rock wool. Looked just like this past growing season. When this occurs this early on, there's really nothing you can do to save the plant. Once that stem shrivels up too much, you've lost it. So this is one that you really want to prevent. This brings us to an insect that can affect our cannabis plants, particularly indoor plants, and that is spider mites. These are tiny arachnids, kind of like insects, more related to spiders, and it can cause stippling on leaves, little bites that look like rough specks or roughness on the leaves. That would be your first sign of spider mites. Webbing is a more advanced sign, so once you have mature and large population of spider mites, you can see webbing. These little creatures are also visible if you have a hand lens or a microscope. They typically live on the underside of the leaves and feed off the plant. So what they do is they really insert a proboscis, like a tap into your plants and suck out the juices. They're taking in water and the sugars that your plants are making through photosynthesis. So you can prevent spider mites by keeping a clean environment. Having good sanitation in your grow is important to prevent spider mites, but once you get them, treat with neem oil or insecticidal soap. These two insecticides are organic options and can really help with a spider mite infestation. Some people also introduce ladybugs onto their plants, and they can be helpful as well. This is the underside of a plant with spider mite eggs. This is actually a rosemary plant, and I took this over the summer because my rosemary was not looking very good, and I looked at the underside and it had gotten spider mites. So this rosemary is definitely staying out of my grow room, and being in a quarantined area, all those little bubbles under there, spider mite eggs, and you can see kind of filamentous webbing. And this picture is a spider mite on a cannabis leaf. The spider mite is right here. It's kind of hard to see. This is taken with a microscope, a phone camera through a microscope. And so it's feeding on that main vein of the leaf. So this is on the underside of the leaf. So it's important to note that if you're treating with neem oil or insecticidal soap, to get all surfaces, get the underside, the top of the leaves, get the stems. So there are many types of plant diseases out there that can impact our cannabis grow. So controlling them depends on the type of disease that you are looking at, whether it's abiotic, biotic, whether you're looking at an insect, even nematodes, those are little soil worms, microscopic worms or fungi. They'll all have slightly different preferred environments where that disease-causing organism will thrive. And so to limit that will help the plants. You also want to consider the time of year and the stage of your growing that the plants are in. Also consider how much disease can be tolerated to keep disease from spreading. So I had a few plants growing outside in my backyard this past summer, and they had some little bite marks from caterpillars. It wasn't that big of a deal, and I thought I could tolerate them, and the plants were healthy, so I let it go. I didn't treat for that specific pest. That's part of something called integrated pest management, where you keep a close eye on what you're growing, monitor it, you determine a threshold at which you would do some kind of treatment to prevent or mitigate your problem, and then you treat. But if you don't feel like you need to treat, you don't have to. Of course, for some of these, it's important to treat early, especially the big ones like botrytis, fusarium, and spider mites. Treating early can definitely help spread that infection. And always, healthy plants minimize disease. The healthier your plants are, the less stress they're under, and the more they can tolerate. They have to have a healthy immune system, just like we have to have a healthy immune system. So keeping them with the right nutrients, the right amount of water, good spacing will help with any kind of disease. For more information, I definitely recommend the Cannabis Grow Bible, chapter 14, where it talks about troubleshooting. I'm looking at the third edition with chapter 13. That book is by Greg Green. Also, there's a great website by Blue Sky Organics, the top 5 cannabis diseases. Alchemiaweb.com can also help out. There are multiple types of forums online for specific diseases, and lots of good books out there on plant pathology. Please feel free to email me with any questions that you have about plant diseases. Images and photos are taken by me or from the American Phytopathological Society unless otherwise noted. Take care, and please check our Moodle site for more information.